Conservative New Media viewers, what's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal, and I'm joined by Charles Ortel, who is a managing partner at Newport Value Partners, LLC. Charles, thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me on, John. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, yesterday was the debate, the first presidential debate of the 2012 presidential election and in the United States here, and it was between President Barack Obama and Governor Mitt Romney, who is the Republican presidential nominee. What were your general impressions of that debate?
Well, I think that what really stood in stark contrast was the President Obama who appeared without a teleprompter. Romney was really on his game, who explained his points effectively, crisply, addressing nuances, addressing substance. I think there were two contrasts there, and they were very jarring, and it's going to take a bit of time for the public who's so used to seeing the scripted Obama deal with the reality that was put on for everybody over 90 minutes last night.
Now, let's talk about some of the specifics. What did you make of Governor Romney's proposals and versus President Obama's proposals, particularly when it comes to the economy?
Well, it's really a study in massive differences. President Obama seems to be addicted to big government. He doesn't seem to understand that the amount of money that's spent in the United States on government, when you add up state, local, and federal, and after all, many state and local initiatives are driven by unfunded federal imperatives, that number is $5.6 trillion, the total amount spent on government already. And it clearly is way too much money. I believe that Mitt Romney gets the fact that the business model for government in this country is badly broken. And indeed, the business model for government throughout the advanced world is badly broken. So Romney needs to explain that message. I don't think he will go as far as he needs to go through November 6th, telling and explaining to Americans that under Mitt Romney, once he joins in the debates with Congress and the fights with Congress over the fiscal cliff, government in the United States will have to be put on a strict diet. If we don't do it, foreign bond vigilantes are going to do it for us. So Romney has actually a pretty tough message to say, before the holiday season. Look, don't expect so many gifts once I'm in power, because frankly, we've already put way too much debt on this economy, and we need to change course. Gross domestic product, the number that we all rely upon when we try to examine, is a nation doing well or not doing well? Gross domestic product is a deeply flawed statistic that overstates the amount of money available inside a country to service debt. So when you have the renowned economists, the Stiglitzes, the Rogoffs, and other people like that talk about, a country's fine because its ratio of debt to GDP is okay, it's less than 100%. We don't subscribe to that view at all. We think that the right number to concentrate upon is the amount of money generated in the private sector from wages. Forget about fringe benefits, wages. When you look at that number, you see in the United States that the trend in the growth of private sector income has slowed dramatically, while at the same time the number of households inside the United States has increased, on a path that has been relentless since 1945. So the amount of private sector income per household is, in real terms, shrinking. On the other hand, because around the world, because Europe is so troubled, and because there is a lot of global wealth that needs to go somewhere, people, and of course our Federal Reserve Bank, have been snapping up debt in the United States, building up a pile of debt on this country that is frankly insupportable. We've got to make massive change in this country to bring our debt under control, and we've got to do it soon.
Now, okay, let's talk about a couple of things. I want to come back to that and come back to the debate thing as well, but I want to put something else on the table as well. QE3, this monetary easing policy by the Federal Reserve. What do you make of that, and what are you hearing on the street about that?
The problem with QE 1, 2, and infinity is that it's a sugar high. And, the Fed needs, I agree with Ron Paul, I've been saying this for years, the Fed definitely needs a truly independent audit.
So let's talk.
It's time for people who are thinking that the way out of this, an easy way out of this mess, that somebody's going to decide to bail out United States on lax terms. People have to grow up. That is not going to happen. We have to fix the mess we've created, and we got to do it soon.
How do we create the environment that's going to be pro-growth, pro-jobs, pro-economic advancement that gives everybody the best opportunity to be successful, to start and grow businesses or find that job or to, pursue and fulfill their dreams? And if you have an environment, now we're talking regulations. There's some cities, and we've read the stories about this, where, if you have some children and they set up a lemonade stand, they may be busted for not having a business permit. You have all this stifling taxes and regulations and bureaucratic red tape that I believe stops people from going out there and being creative folks and being able to, pursue the American dream, if you will.
Well, I think, there's a lot of that. I mean, we really need to understand, as Reagan once did. I mean, Reagan tried to put it wheeling out, the Federal Register and seeing how big it was. We've got to have a serious effort to cut back on, as you say, the regulations that smother businesses. And you see those particularly in places like New York City, big cities, that have not only the federal issues, but the state and local issues to deal with. And when you start, looking, I believe Senator McGovern found religion on the conservative side when, after running as one of the most liberal people before Obama for president, getting trounced, he later, in his later years, tried to set up a business and was horrified how much red tape there is in this country. We've got to change that. There's no question about that. We should go and look at a place that I know well, Singapore, and contrast, what Singapore will do for an investor, a person who wants to set up a business, with what you have to go through in this country. And there are huge differences there. I don't think it's enough to just go around the edges. I think we have to, I was taught years ago, and I think Romney subscribes to the same view. If you have a business or a nation with bad finances, but a good business model,
okay,
you can restructure that business or nation. If you have a business or nation with a bad business model, a fundamentally flawed business model, no amount of additional money is going to solve the problem. You have to address the business model. How much government do we really need? Do we need to spend $5.6 trillion? We got to repeal Obamacare. And when we pass laws, they should be with the associated rules and regulations written, so that you get to see what you're really signing up for. We have to address the education system in this country, as Scott Walker tried to do, as others have tried to do.
I know there's been some discussion about a percentage of government spending against GDP, and you talked about, GDP as the proper metric or not of a country's economy, but let's just use that for a second. Where are we at now in the United States in terms of percentage of government spending for GDP? And you talked about the proper size of government. Where do you feel that government should be in terms of a percentage of GDP? Obviously, we do need some government. Government's very important. There's no question about it. There's some incredibly critical roles that government plays. But I guess the question for most folks here, and maybe of this election, is what is the proper role and what is the proper size of government? So can you quantify some of that for us, in your opinion?
Sure. $5.6 trillion is what we spend on government.
Okay.
To put that number in context, $5.6 trillion is very close to the total output of all of China, a nation that is almost more than four times the population of the U.S. Put another way, the GDP of the United States is about $15 trillion. Now, GDP, as I told you, is a dangerous number because it double counts the supposed benefits of government spending.
Okay.
But take 5.6 on 15, it's roughly more than a third. And again, these numbers might confuse listeners who focus only on federal statistics. I'm using all government spending, including state and local, and it's very important, in my view, to add those numbers up.
Okay.
So you're talking about more than 35% of GDP being spent on government. But the better way to look at it is the total wages earned in our country, according to pretty good estimates made by the Bureau of Economic Statistics, are about $5.6 trillion. We're spending the total amount of private sector wages on government.
Wow. Wow.
Right.
And where do you believe that number should be? Like, what percentage do you feel would be more optimal? Or what range do you feel is a better range to make the United States more competitive in the global economy?
I would cut it by at least 35%.
Okay. Okay. So putting it.
And I think we're going to have to. I mean, if you go and you look at countries that have gotten into trouble, which include, Russia went bankrupt in 1997. Look at nations that go through bankruptcy. See what happens to their government spending. That's what we're looking at. We're not looking about slowing the growth rate in government spending, which is what Romney and Ryan have been talking about. We have to cut spending.
So what you're saying is, one way or the other, at the end of the day, figuratively speaking here, the bill's going to come due, and we can put our heads in the sand. I'm throwing about as many cliches and metaphors in here as I can, but basically, some way or somehow, you can't just ignore the problem. And you point out what happened in Russia, and you can look at other countries, and you see the issues that Europe and the EU are struggling with now. At some point, the money runs out. You can't borrow anymore. Maybe you can't print anymore without the negative consequences impacting. There's going to be hard choices, and there's going to be economic pain at some point if you continue these overspending and the government being too big type of policies. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
And I take it a step further. It's not that the bill will come due. The bill has already come due.
Okay.
The United States was downgraded last year.
Yeah, that's right. Haven't we been downgraded twice now? I mean, and talk about, that's important right there. Let's talk about that for a minute. Talk about the impact and the importance of having our credit rating as a country downgraded.
We don't have any room left to lower interest rates further, and we certainly can't effectively spend more money.
So, in your opinion, what is the sort of best way out of this, if you will? What is the best solution in terms of policies that can be implemented that would enable the United States to sort of work itself out of these issues? And what confidence level do you have with the Obama administration if President Obama gets reelected, or the Romney administration if Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan win the election in November? Let's talk about that.
Okay, I have no confidence. I mean, I have said something I'll repeat before now, which is that I have no confidence whatsoever that anything can be fixed under an Obama administration round 2. The problem is, though, even if Romney wins, I don't think the math suggests, even in a landslide, that he will take 60 seats in the Senate. So the Democrats will be bitter, and they are much better fighting in the minority than the Republicans have proven to be. So I think they're going to make his life very, very difficult, which is why I would say that the sophisticated investors do not believe that the United States will fix its problems in the next 2 to 4 years, even under a Romney.
So, do you believe that the problems will get better, or will they get worse, or will they stay the same? What's your prognostication on that?
I think they're going to get worse. I mean, you look at the Middle East. What's going to happen with the Iranian situation? I bring that up because that will affect the price of oil.
Okay.
And the price of oil goes up. I mean, it's obviously going to be a disaster for the world and for the Middle East if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, and even worse, decides to get more aggressive, trying to spread its influence in the Middle East and around the world. But beyond that, the price of oil will go up. And when the price of oil goes up even more than it has under the 4 years with Obama, that means that inflation will rear its ugly head, which means you'll have to raise interest rates. If you have to raise interest rates, the towering debt load that we already have placed upon this and other advanced economies will become ever more crushing.
Wow. But do you countervailing to that? If Governor Romney talked about an energy plan, what if he's able to get some energy production increase here in the United States? And what about if oil is not quite as high because of lower overall global demand because of some of the economies? In other words, even if there's some issues in the Middle East with the Iran, do you feel like maybe there's some other things that could offset that or mitigate that?
Well, you see, I actually have some experience in the energy business, and
okay.
Maybe you do too, but the problem I agree that there is medium to long-term hope for the U.S. in the energy sector.
Okay.
The problem is, to get those resources on stream takes a lot of time.
Right.
If you pull the switch on the 6th, and gave the high sign to the energy people. Look, we will greenlight everything we can come January 20th, 2013. It won't be till 2014, 15 at the earliest that sizable resources would flow into the U.S.
Okay. So
and the problem here is the financial markets, as we learned. I said that on the weekend of September 13th, 14th, 2008, we entered economic purgatory. That's where we are right now. We don't know if we're in heaven. I know we're not in heaven, and I can't say we're in hell yet. But the jury's out on where we will ultimately end up.
Some very powerful commentary there, Charles. We definitely appreciate your expertise and your time, and hope that you can join us again here in the near future. That was Charles Ortel, managing partner of Newport Value Partners LLC. Thank you so much for joining us, Charles. What do you people out there think? I want to hear from you right now. What are your opinions of this election? What are your opinions of the debate performance between Governor Mitt Romney and President Barack Obama? I want to hear your commentary on that. You can give us the comments below. Please subscribe above. I'm John D. Villarreal. You're watching Conservative New Media. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.